Welcome back. Here's a full-length, unique 7,000-word story script designed for your YouTube coin channel, focused on the 1989 $2 coin with a fictional face value of $89 million, packed with intrigue, history, and value speculation. In a small town nestled deep in the folds of the American Midwest, a coin collector stumbled upon something extraordinary. A 1989 $2 that, at first glance, appeared like any other. It was just another piece of metal, tossed into an old drawer, forgotten between yellowing receipts and broken watch bands. But that was before its story began to unfold. A story filled with mystery, lost history, and a valuation that would one day captivate the attention of numismatists, historians, and treasure seekers around the world. The coin bore the familiar image of George Washington on its obverse, a symbol of strength and unity, a face etched into American memory. But there was something different. The luster was deeper, the edges sharper. The coin had aged, yes, but not in the way that dulls and erases. It had aged like a relic, a time capsule sealed in silver and copper. The collector, a man by the name of Walter Jennings, had been sorting through a collection inherited from his grandfather, a World War II veteran and a known enthusiast of rare and unique currency. Walter had no reason to believe there was anything special about this particular quarter. But upon closer inspection, he noticed a slight misalignment in the minting. The rim looked too precise. The texture felt unusual. There was a faint die crack running diagonally across Washington's neckline, something that might seem like a minting error, but the more he investigated, the more he began to suspect this was no ordinary error coin. He took the coin to a local coin shop, expecting the usual shrug or modest offer. But the moment the shop owner laid eyes on it, the air changed. The room fell silent. The shopkeeper, an older gentleman named Louis Granger, pulled out a magnifying glass and inspected it for what felt like hours. When he finally looked up, his expression was a mix of awe and concern. "You have something that shouldn't exist," Louis whispered. This is one of the lost quarters." Lost quarters. It sounded like something from a children's adventure novel. Walter leaned in, intrigued. Louis explained that during the late 1980s, the U.S. Mint had initiated a secretive project, a limited run of experimental coins with advanced minting techniques and unusual metallic compositions. These coins were never meant to circulate. Only a few were struck, primarily as tests for anti-counterfeit features that would only be made public decades later. The records of these coins were sealed, classified under obscure bureaucratic files, hidden behind layers of red tape. According to urban legend among elite coin collectors, a handful of these test quarters had slipped through the cracks. Some said they were smuggled out by mint employees. Others believed they were lost in transit, accidentally released into circulation, or hidden by high-level officials fearing scrutiny. And now, here in Walter's hand, was a coin that matched every detail of the myth. Word of the coin spread quickly. Forums lit up with speculation. Photos were shared in whispers, emails coded with secrecy. Within a week, Walter received offers that seemed absurd. $100,000. Then $500,000. Then one day, a private collector from Dubai offered $3.2 million just for a chance to inspect it in person. But Walter refused. Not because he didn't need the money, he did, but because something about the coin compelled him to dig deeper. Why 1989? Why that year in particular? That's when Walter discovered the history buried beneath the surface. In 1989, the U.S. Mint was undergoing a transformation. The Cold War was nearing its end, and global economies were shifting. There was a push to modernize currency, to test new alloys and engraving technologies. Some within the Treasury believed that future coins would need to be embedded with micromarkers, tiny, almost invisible identifiers, to protect against increasingly sophisticated counterfeit operations. The quarter Walter held matched the rumored specifications. Its density was slightly higher than standard clad quarters. Under ultraviolet light, faint lines formed a pattern that resembled the American flag. And inside the reeded edge, something no coin was supposed to have, was a microscopic inscription, E pluribus unum, in a spiral that defied explanation. Walter decided to send the coin to a private grading agency. When it returned, sealed in acrylic and accompanied by a certificate, the verdict was staggering: MS 70, perfect uncirculated condition. But that wasn't all. The grading specialist included a confidential letter suggesting that the coin might be part of an unreported series known internally at the Mint as Project Liberty. If confirmed, this could be one of only 4 known examples to exist: one lost in a mint fire, one allegedly in the Smithsonian under lock and key, one missing entirely, and now, one in Walter's possession. The face value of the coin remained 25 cents. But collectors began to refer to it as the $89 million quarter, a nickname born out of the year and the mythical valuation that came with it. Auction houses circled like vultures, preparing for the fight of the decade. Museums offered to host it on rotating display, promising climate-controlled chambers and full security, but Walter had changed. He wasn't just a man with a rare coin anymore. He had become a keeper of history, a guardian of something far more significant than money. He began to travel, meeting with former Mint employees, seeking interviews with retired engravers. One elderly man, now living in Arizona, confirmed the whispers. Yes, the man said through trembling lips. I struck one of those coins myself. Only a few presses. I wasn't supposed to, but they asked for it, said it was part of a test. I never saw them again after that. The mystery deepened. Conspiracy theorists claimed the coin held secrets beyond the mint. Some said it was laced with rare earth metals, capable of disrupting radar. Others believed it contained coordinates etched into the molecular structure, a map to hidden gold reserves, perhaps a vault lost beneath the Federal Reserve itself. Of course, none of that could be proven. But the speculation only drove the value higher. At a private event hosted by the Numismatic Society, Walter finally unveiled the coin to a room of stunned collectors and experts. Cameras flashed. Gasps echoed. Security guards stood by with arms folded, their expressions tight. It was a moment etched in history, the day the 1989 quarter dollar became a symbol of mystery, value, and the unexpected weight of forgotten objects. In the years that followed, the coin passed hands but never truly changed ownership. It remained part of Walter's legacy, even after his death. He left it to a foundation dedicated to coin history and education. Today, school children visit a glass case in a quiet museum in Virginia, unaware of the tales whispered through its silver walls. They don't know that the coin once traveled across oceans, was examined under scanning electron microscopes, and offered as ransom in a billionaire's negotiation. They don't know that men in suits once tried to steal it from Walter, that he was followed for weeks by unmarked cars, or that he buried it once in his backyard, just to be safe. But the coin knows. The weight of history sits quietly in its 5.67 grams. The details, Washington's stoic profile, the eagle on the reverse, the precise date, carry more than national identity. They carry the echoes of every hand that held it, every eye that examined it, every heart that dreamed of it, and somewhere out there, in a dusty drawer or the bottom of a forgotten jar, another coin may wait. Another 1989 quarter, struck in secret, sealed with history, and holding within it the chance to change someone's life forever, because sometimes, value isn't just measured in dollars or cents. Sometimes, value is measured in wonder. In the thrill of discovery. In the stories that rise from silence and refuse to fade. The 1989 quarter dollar was never meant to be found. But it was. And now, its legend is forever stamped in the annals of numismatic lore. A piece of metal. A piece of history. And perhaps, in the eyes of those who believe, something worth far more than its weight, a symbol of the unexpected, and the priceless, and the world will never look at pocket change the same way again. Would you like me to write a matching short title and YouTube video description as well? Next, 1987, amid the hum of economic resurgence and a time of transition in American history, the United States Mint produced yet another run of its iconic Washington quarter. At first glance, the 1987 quarter dollar seemed like any other, a simple 25-cent piece circulating through pockets, cash registers, and soda machines. But decades later, coin collectors, numismatists, and treasure hunters alike would look back on that seemingly ordinary year with fresh eyes, inspired by a twist of fate that transformed a humble coin into a symbol of mystery and immense value. It wasn't just the age of the coin that drew attention. Something about the 1987 quarter stood out, subtle, perhaps overlooked at first, but slowly gaining notoriety among the most observant enthusiasts. And so began the story of how one coin, minted during a routine production year, came to be whispered about in auctions and forums, ultimately earning a face value of $87 million, not for its original worth, but for its history, rarity, and the legends that followed. The Washington quarter design had been in place since 1932, commemorating the 200th birthday of George Washington. The obverse featured his profile, stern and proud, a figure who symbolized leadership and freedom. The reverse bore the image of an eagle, wings spread wide, clutching arrows and olive branches, standing for both strength and peace. In 1987, that design remained unchanged. No fanfare surrounded that year's issue. There were no celebrated design updates, no mint mark controversies, no press releases proclaiming its uniqueness. And yet, something happened. The first clue emerged in a dusty antique shop on the edge of a small town in Maine. An elderly man, known to the locals as someone who kept to himself, had brought in a box of old coins he had found tucked away in his attic. Inside was a mix of common change, nickels, dimes, pennies, and quarters. But among them, one quarter caught the eye of the shop owner, who noticed something odd about the coin's edge. It had a slightly different hue, an off-color that shimmered subtly under the overhead lamp. He took a closer look. The quarter was dated 1987, struck at the Denver Mint. At first, nothing seemed off about the design itself. But when weighed, it revealed a discrepancy, just enough to raise questions. The shop owner contacted a local collector who confirmed that the metal composition was irregular. Instead of the standard cupronickel-clad copper, this particular quarter had been mistakenly struck on a silver planchet, an error not officially documented for that year. Such anomalies were rare, but not unheard of. What made this one truly remarkable was the pristine condition in which it was found. The coin was sent to be authenticated, and it received one of the highest grades ever assigned to a circulating coin from that decade. It was labeled not only as a mint error but as a numismatic anomaly. And with that label came attention. News of the discovery spread, and collectors from across the country began checking their own 1987 quarters. Forums buzzed, and videos speculated about how many more such quarters could exist. Some theorized that a batch of silver blanks had mistakenly been introduced during production, leading to a handful of silver-struck 1987 quarters escaping into circulation, but as more stories surfaced, it became clear this was no simple minting error tale. A second coin was found, this time in California, with similar properties, abnormal weight, silver content, flawless strike, and a mysterious provenance. Unlike the first, this coin was marked with a P mint mark for Philadelphia. That deepened the mystery. Now coins from both mints, East and West, were being found with the same traits. How could the same error occur in two locations? And why were the coins so few? Theories blossomed. Some believed these quarters were part of a secret commemorative batch never released to the public. Others thought it might have been an internal mint test that went unrecorded. A few dared to suggest that rogue employees, aware of the planchets, struck the coins intentionally and released them discreetly. Whatever the truth, the public was now captivated. Every garage sale, estate auction, and pocket of forgotten change became a potential treasure trove. Then came the auctions. The first 1987 silver quarter sold quietly, behind closed doors, for an astonishing $87,000. The number matched the coin's date, an intentional bid by a collector who wanted to make history. A year later, another sold for $870,000, a figure that sent shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. By this time, the 1987 quarter had become legendary, and not just for its error status. It was now a cultural icon, a talisman of what hidden value might exist in the ordinary. As more quarters were analyzed, another pattern emerged. A very small number of 1,987 quarters contained micro-engravings, tiny initials embedded within the design, visible only under magnification. These markings didn't match any known engravers from the U.S. Mint. Who placed them there, and why, remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in modern numismatics. Some believe they were added as a hidden signature by a rebellious artist. Others thought it might be the mark of an elite group of collectors who had gotten hold of these coins before their secrets were known. The lore only deepened when a retired Mint employee came forward anonymously, sharing cryptic details of a covert operation in the late 80s to destroy a shipment of experimental quarters that had mistakenly been distributed. According to this account, a handful of these coins had already slipped out, sent in bank rolls, or perhaps pocketed during a shift. The rest, he said, were melted down. If his story was true, it meant that the surviving coins were not only rare, they were never meant to exist. Over the decades, prices skyrocketed. The most pristine example, discovered in a safe deposit box in Ohio, broke all records when it was sold at an international auction house. The final hammer price was $8.7 million. From there, it only gained more mystique. Media outlets began to refer to it as the Ghost Quarter or the $87 million coin, a nickname rooted more in legend than fact, but catchy enough to stick. Soon, this single coin was no longer just a collectible, it was a phenomenon. It appeared in documentaries, inspired fictional novels, and even found its way into an art installation in New York. Schools discussed it in economics lessons about value perception and rarity. Museums offered seven-figure deals just to exhibit one for a few months. It became a symbol of what lay hidden in the mundane, a beacon to everyday people that sometimes, extraordinary worth resides in the overlooked. In online communities, entire groups sprang up dedicated to hunting for more 1987 quarters. They compared weights, analyzed sounds when dropped on glass, checked edges under microscopes, and consulted spectrometers. Some even devised elaborate systems to track where the coins had been found, hoping to triangulate a geographic pattern. And still, the number of confirmed specimens remained incredibly low. Fewer than 24 had been authenticated with the unique silver composition and markings. But what made the value skyrocket beyond belief wasn't just the material or the mistake. It was the story. A coin is only worth what someone is willing to pay, and when that coin carries with it a tale that weaves together mystery, history, human error, and hidden artistry, it becomes more than metal. It becomes myth. The face value of $87 million wasn't based on math, it was symbolic, poetic, chosen by collectors and enthusiasts who saw in that simple number a mirror of the year itself and of everything the coin represented. Now, when someone picks up a 1987 quarter, even a standard one, they often pause. They weigh it in their hand a little longer. They hold it up to the light. They wonder if maybe, just maybe, they've found one of the rare few. And that is the magic of this coin, not just in what it is, but in what it invites us to believe, that the ordinary can become extraordinary, that value can hide in plain sight, and that history is sometimes written in metal and mystery. In the end, the 1987 quarter remains one of the greatest coin stories of our time. Whether found in a drawer, a pocket, or beneath the cushion of an old couch, each one carries a whisper of possibility. And for those still searching, hope remains alive, because legends never truly fade, and treasure, as history has shown, often waits patiently to be discovered. Next, 1991. The heart of American coinage, the quarter dollar stands as a symbol of commerce, tradition, and timeless value. Among the countless quarters that have circulated through the hands of millions, there exists a unique legend surrounding one specific year, the 1991 quarter dollar. To the average person, this coin might seem ordinary. It's small, silver-toned, and bears the image of George Washington on the obverse and the majestic bald eagle on the reverse. Yet, the 1991 quarter has quietly earned a mythical reputation in the world of collectors, where its face value of 25 cents is routinely outshined by tales of million-dollar evaluations, driven by rare errors, limited mintages, and historical intrigue. Imagine a small coin minted in 1991 that somehow becomes the centerpiece of auctions and secretive collector deals, whispered about in forums and behind closed doors of high-end coin galleries. The story doesn't start in a vault or at a collector's convention. It starts in everyday life: pocket change, grocery stores, laundromats. These coins went unnoticed at first, used to buy soda, to pay parking meters, and to get change from vending machines. But something changed. Some keen-eyed collectors began to notice certain 1991 quarters weren't quite like the others. Stories began surfacing about anomalies. There were 1,991 quarters with doubling on the date, some struck off-center, and others with an odd shimmer that didn't quite match the typical copper-nickel blend. One such coin, discovered in an old cookie tin in Kansas, was taken to a grading service and determined to be struck on a silver planchet, something that should not have happened in 1991. The U.S. Mint had stopped using silver for regular quarters decades earlier. This anomaly catapulted the coin into stardom, eventually selling at auction for over $85,000. That sale sparked a wildfire of interest. Was it a mint error? A test strike that escaped? Or part of a forgotten special edition? More coins began to emerge. A few had striking features, such as the eagle's wings showing unusual detail not common in that year's regular strikes. Others had partial collars, missing cladding, or reversed designs that were slightly off in alignment. One collector, a retired Navy officer from Florida, swore he found a 1991 quarter with a completely different reverse, one that bore what looked like a stylized Liberty Bell, instead of the eagle. Although the authenticity of his claim was never officially verified, the tale added fuel to the fire. The numismatic world thrives on mystery, and the 1991 quarter became a treasure hunt in itself. The coin story ties deeply into the operations of the United States Mint during the early 1990s. The Denver and Philadelphia mints were both heavily involved in striking quarters that year. However, production was not without its challenges. 1991 saw increased pressure to meet circulation demand, with machines running continuously and planchets sourced from varying providers. It's this very chaos that likely led to the existence of the unusual variations. Some planchets, intended for foreign coinage, were occasionally mixed into U.S. batches. Striking errors happened in the rush, and not all of them were caught during quality control checks. A particularly compelling tale involves a man named Marcus Ellsworth, a janitor at the Philadelphia Mint who later wrote a book about his experiences. In it, he mentions a night shift in late 1990, during the lead-up to the New Year's minting run, when the presses malfunctioned and created a series of error strikes. "We called them the ghost coins," he wrote. "They had faint impressions, weird surfaces. Some disappeared into bags bound for destruction. Some, I don't know where they went." Though his claims were met with skepticism, they fed into the mystique of the 1991 quarter. Then there's the matter of private collectors and their mysterious purchases. Some coins never make it to public auction. They change hands in shadowy deals between wealthy collectors, private investors, and sometimes even museums. Rumors swirl about a specific 1991 quarter that sold privately in Switzerland for over $1.2 million. The buyer remains anonymous, but it's said the coin featured a reverse die that was never used for public circulation, a rare prototype design showing a spread-wing eagle clutching arrows, in much sharper detail than anything released officially. All of this culminated in a cultural phenomenon. Coin collectors, from amateurs to seasoned experts, began scouring their collections for 1991 quarters. People started checking their change at gas stations and digging through old piggy banks. Social media lit up with images of quarters under magnifying glasses, amateur sleuths comparing ridge counts and die marks. One TikTok video showcasing a pristine 1991 quarter with off-center strike went viral, garnering millions of views and making headlines for igniting a new generation's interest in coin collecting. The financial world took notice. Auction houses started to actively promote 1991 quarters as spotlight lots, and grading companies introduced specialized certifications for them. Suddenly, a coin that was once overlooked became a symbol of hope, a tiny piece of metal that could potentially be worth a fortune. Some grading companies reported a 400% increase in 1991 quarter submissions. Magazines and blogs dedicated to numismatics released special issues, analyzing every possible variety and hypothesizing new ones. Then came the notion of the $91 million quarter. It began as a joke in a collector's forum, a tongue-in-cheek reference to how inflated coin values could become with enough hype. One day, a user posted, "Someone's going to call this the $91 million coin just because it's from 1991. The phrase caught on, and soon, it wasn't a joke anymore. YouTube videos, blogs, and even news segments started using the term. It became a slogan, a meme, and a myth all at once. It didn't matter that no coin had yet sold for that amount. The name stuck. Interestingly, the psychological impact of the $91 million face value legend made collectors reimagine the coin itself. They began to assign emotional and cultural significance to it, viewing it as a time capsule from an era of change. The early 90s were a transitional period in American life, marked by shifting technology, evolving politics, and a changing economy. Holding a 1991 quarter felt like holding a piece of that shift, one small, shiny artifact that had survived decades, and now held stories of both the mundane and the magical. Today, the 1991 quarter has become more than a collector's item. It's a legend in metal, a coin that reminds us of the value we assign to history, rarity, and curiosity. Some coins truly are worth big money, not just because of what they're made of or how they were struck, but because of the stories we tell about them. And the story of the 1991 quarter continues to grow, one discovery at a time, with every pocket checked, every jar of change poured out, and every magnifying glass held up in hope. Next 1981, the streets of America were buzzing with excitement over the launch of the new IBM personal computer. MTV aired its first music video, and the coin that would eventually cause a frenzy among collectors quietly entered circulation. The 1981 $quarter coin, featuring the familiar face of George Washington, seemed like just another standard issue at the time. No special ceremonies, no glittering launch, and certainly no premonitions about its future value. But as decades passed, this ordinary-looking piece of metal began to write an extraordinary story for itself, one that collectors now whisper about in hushed tones and display in their collections with pride, often guarded as if it were a treasure from a long-lost civilization. The coin bore all the typical features. On the obverse, the profile of Washington faced left, his stoic gaze echoing the resilience of a young nation. Above him, the word liberty stood boldly, a timeless promise etched in metal. Below, the date, 1981. To the right, "In God We Trust," a phrase that's been on every U.S. coin for over a century. The reverse side carried the image of the heraldic eagle, wings spread with quiet dignity, arrows clutched in its talons, the word United States of America arcing across the top, and $quarter along the bottom edge. Yet something about this coin was different, something that eluded even the most watchful eyes back then. A subtle minting irregularity, the legacy of a rapidly advancing minting technology combined with human oversight, made some 1981 quarters stand out under close inspection. For most people, the 1981 quarter jingled in pockets and vanished into vending machines, toll booths, and convenience store counters. But for a small number of collectors and numismatists, a whisper was spreading. Some of these coins were not like the others. The United States Mint produced 1981 quarters in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. Each of these bore unique characteristics, but it was the San Francisco proof versions and a few error coins from the other mints that later became the subject of intense fascination. One such coin, initially sold as part of a proof set, was accidentally struck twice, creating a remarkable and rare double die obverse. This error was so subtle it took years for anyone to even notice. But when it was finally brought to light, the numismatic community took notice. Some of the 1981 quarters were also struck on planchets meant for other coins, like nickels or foreign coinage, making them off-metal errors. These flukes in production were not supposed to happen, but they did. And they were exceedingly rare. Only a handful of such anomalies have surfaced, and when they do, they spark a wave of excitement across auction houses, online marketplaces, and collectors groups. As the years rolled on and coin collecting began to evolve with the internet age, the legend of the 1981 quarter grew. Collectors began hoarding any quarter from that year, hoping to stumble upon one of the elusive error variants. Coin grading companies like PCGS and NGC started to receive more and more submissions from hopeful enthusiasts, most of which turned out to be standard. But then came the breakthrough. A nearly perfect 1981 quarter with a double die obverse, sharp in detail and gleaming in its luster, was verified, authenticated, and graded at an astonishing MS-68. It was later sold at auction for a staggering price that stunned even seasoned collectors. The coin fetched well over six figures, and with that single sale, the market turned its eyes sharply toward 1981. Rumors swirled that a wealthy investor had paid $81 million for a complete set of high-grade, error 1981 quarters, including a rare off-metal strike, a full band proof, and a deeply cameoed double-die variant. The figure, though unconfirmed, sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Everyone now wanted a piece of that legend. There's something magnetic about the mystery of coins, how a seemingly trivial item, used to buy soda or bus fare, could eventually be worth millions. For the 1981 quarter, its value lies not only in the few rare errors that exist, but also in the story it carries, a coin from a year of change, a quiet minting anomaly that blossomed into a modern treasure. The pursuit of the 1981 quarter has become more than just a hobby. It's a quest. Collectors have traveled cross-country to coin shows, bid in high-stakes online auctions, and scoured old proof sets purchased from estate sales in hopes of uncovering one. Some have found them buried in old piggy banks or forgotten in dusty coin jars, not realizing they held a piece of potential fortune until they felt the tug of curiosity and decided to take a closer look. Stories have surfaced over the years of unlikely discoveries. A retired teacher in Ohio found a proof 1981 quarter in a box of old keepsakes that belonged to her late husband. It turned out to be a rare variety with a repunched mint mark, later sold at auction for over $45,000. A teenager in California uncovered a nearly pristine Denver minted quarter with a rare reverse die crack while sorting through his grandfather's coin collection. He sold it to a private collector for enough money to pay for college. Some even speak of a rumored ghost mint mark variant, where a faint, almost imperceptible mint mark appears and disappears under changing light. Although never officially confirmed, such stories only fuel the mystique. Every coin has a story, but the 1981 quarters is steeped in luck, mystery, and the ever-present possibility of unexpected wealth. The irony is that most people never notice coins. They're passed from hand to hand, clinked into jars, left under couch cushions, or given as change and forgotten. But for those who take the time to look, really look, there's a world of detail waiting to be discovered. The 1981 quarter is a testament to that. It reminds us that hidden value can lie in the most unassuming places and that sometimes, the extraordinary hides in plain sight. Today, the coin lives on not only in collections but also in stories, videos, forums, and dreams. It's not just about metal content or minting rarity anymore, it's about what it represents, the magic of discovery. A single coin, created in the quiet churn of the U.S. Mint over 4 decades ago, has sparked a legacy that continues to inspire. Whether or not a coin ever truly sold for $81 million is beside the point. The figure, real or mythologized, represents something greater, the belief that anything is possible, that every coin might be a ticket to something incredible. And in the world of coin collecting, that belief is worth more than gold. It's the heartbeat of the hobby. So next time you hold a quarter in your hand, take a moment. Look closely. Especially if it's from 1981. Because maybe, just maybe, you're holding a piece of history. And maybe, just maybe, it's worth more than you ever imagined.